of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. I want to welcome everyone to our April 2nd meeting on this beautiful day. Please note the council is in full attendance. First, items from council on our agenda. And I would like to, I know we have a couple of things. Do y'all have other things that's not under items from council? I know I have one.
I just wanted to ask something. Somebody asked me last night, is there an ordinance about 18-wheelers parking in the street, in residences?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I know that there's a limit on how long vehicles can park in the street.
That's the 24 hours.
But I'm not sure about whether it specifically applies to different sizes of vehicles. I don't remember that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I could find out for you and bring a report back.
Okay, because they were asking, there were some complaints about,
Sure.
especially in the new streets that we're working on and stuff like that. We don't want them to be up and down. I know we had the problem with Bronson Street that gentleman called about. So, but I'm talking about stationing, your truck outside of your house and leaving it there for a while.
They just can't leave a vehicle more than 24 hours on the
24 hours,
street.
okay.
Now, what we'll look for is a weight limit. Is it a weight limit? But definitely they can't leave it more. And that's the police department's job to enforce that, no parking greater than 24 hours on the street.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
While we're asking about that, kind of related to it, I've had some complaints about some residences that are unsightly to the neighbors because they're not necessarily unsightly. It's in the eye of the beholder. But along those lines, there are vehicles parked in the driveway. And one of them looks like it probably doesn't move, but it's not jacked up. Are there any limitations on that?
There are. We define a junked vehicle as a vehicle. There's a lot of different categories of what constitutes a junked vehicle, and I'm not going to remember them all off the top of my head, but they include such things as not running is one of them. I think not being currently registered is one. And so if someone is storing junk vehicles on their private property, code enforcement can look into that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Before we get into the rest of the items from council, I want to make a presentation. We occasionally, well, I shouldn't say occasionally, as council members provide their service and leave the council, they'll get a plaque. And in all honesty, sometimes I don't remember. Sometimes I think they're given out at the service banquet or whatnot. I don't recall always giving them out. But we made an oversight. And I want to apologize to Ms. Solis. Her son, Gabriel Solis, as you remember, was a member of this council. And in going through some things in the city manager's office today, we found the plaque, and it was for him. Now, and we contacted him, but he was unable to come by and get it. We should have made a better effort, and I want to apologize to Ms. Solis for that. We appreciate his service on this council. It was May 2009 to May 2012, and I'd like to present that to you now, and I hope that you'll understand that it was an oversight, and we would have liked to much rather give it to him. But so can I give this to you now?
Yes.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
It was asked to me this morning, and I couldn't answer it. I was new on the council at the time. The question was, how and why did we lose fire protection service after Hurricane Harvey? And I couldn't answer her.
We never lost fire protection. Our fire department, Tracy can respond to that, can tell you what they were doing to be able to provide service. So we never lost fire protection service.
Question may be in reference to wind speeds. You know, at certain wind speeds, which is a national standard, we stop responding just for the safety of all responders, law enforcement, fire, and all agencies under the Office of Emergency Management stop responding at a certain period during the hurricane, but that was when tropical storm force winds of 40, I want to say 44 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour was reached and sustained.
I think it has more to do with water pressure at fire hydrants when we had no water pressure from the towers.
And our plan was we operated in the city as we would in the county with a water shuttle system. We coordinated with our local volunteer agencies for their tankers. So we kind of gathered those and had those in a centralized, quick access location. So that was going to be our plan. If we didn't have water, if we needed a bulk amount of water, that we were going to do, just create a shuttle operation just as we do in the county every day.
Right, but we didn't have hydrant service.
Exactly. We did not have hydrant service, but that's tied to the water system.
When it's referred to as fire protection not being available, it didn't have water from fire hydrants and had a workaround plan
I think
in
it's
place
key
for
to
it.
remember, like what Tracy just said, we were operating just as if we were out in the county. It's how we would have provided, we were fortunate we didn't have any fires during that time period.
I remember you had I know you weren't chief then, but had a hard time keeping the guys from going out. They wanted to. Very
Right, yes,
commendable.
that was a challenge.
But there were, anyway, very good.
I think that answers the question, Councilman Garza.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, we have the two presentations. Anything else, council members? Anyone want to bring up? Okay. We need, the proclamation.
Sure, we have a proclamation here for Texas Master Gardeners Association Days, signed by Mayor Paul Polosic, and it reads in part, whereas over 400 Texas Master Gardeners Association members from throughout the state will gather at the Victoria Community Center in Victoria on April 25th through 27th for the 2019 Texas Master Gardeners Association Conference, and whereas the 2019 conference will introduce many Texans to Victoria for the first time, not only with 3 days of educational programs and social events, but with 4 tours featuring Victoria and the area. And whereas, sponsored by the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, the Texas Master Gardeners Association has over 150 county programs and 7,000 volunteers statewide, many of whom have advanced training in numerous horticultural activities. Now, therefore, I, Paul Polosic, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do officially declare April 25th through 27th, 2019, to be Texas Master Gardeners Association Days in Victoria, Texas, in recognition of the many services the Texas Master Gardeners provide to Victoria and to Texas.
Is there anyone here to accept it? Come on up.
I didn't go for this for nothing.
Here, who wants to hold that?
Okay.
Now, come on around. If y'all can slide over so we can sit in the back right behind you. And just sit in
Yeah, like, I used to back behind somebody here like this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Garza, the back of their shirts. Mr. Garza,
Going to attend.
could you get
This is
the
how
back
many
of their
members are
shirt?
in the state.
Could you take a picture back of their T-shirt?
Conference, they'll come in.
Oh, see, Jan's asking you to take a picture of the back of their shirt.
Get the back of their
He
shirt.
wants you to take a picture of the back of their T-shirt.
Oh, on the back.
That's your advertising, but it's, what the event.
Oh,
There we go.
that's fine. That works.
Sorry.
You never know if you're posing on the backside. All right.
Thank you. We need to get OC a faster camera, though, I know, after how many years of this. Thank y'all so much for what you do and what you bring to the community. We appreciate it. Okay. Okay, our next discussion is about our debt capacity projections. Mr. Bachnight asked for that. We can run through that if Gilbert is ready and able.
Able, that's a different
The
story.
allergy's been bothering you, right?
Yeah, so
You
bear with
make
me. You're gonna pass them out. I have some copies just in case y'all didn't bring yours.
Robert, what you're handing out is the same thing that council's
It's the same thing.
Nothing different? Oh, yeah. I'm just making sure they understand.
I had a
it's the
couple of
same
notes
thing. Okay.
after I looked at it, but everything's the same. Gentlemen, I have some more copies if y'all want to too. Except you, Mark. Please give it to you. John's back there, Mark. Over here. Thank you, sir. Enough? Is that enough?
Yeah, and Gilbert, we can post this on the website for
Yeah,
anybody that's not
but-
getting a copy tonight.
I'll email you one tonight. Here, I got
Yeah.
mine. Okay, thank you for your patience. Debt capacity, last time we did this, let me see, we did it in 2013, 2016. I went back and looked at my own notes, so high notes. Back then I did it real detailed, did about an hour and a half, 2, you don't want to do that. So this is the high end. Okay, debt capacity for everybody, just to make sure, refresher course is the city's ability to borrow, issue debt. Couple of comments. I'm sorry, Ms. Garrett, did you want to say something before introduction, anything like that?
If I did, I have forgotten.
Okay, that was my key.
Sorry. If I think
But
about it, I'll
anyway,
interrupt.
over the years, we've been talking about debt capacity projects. I don't know, I came to work here in 1995, so when we started the 5-year improvement, we started a huge list of projects. Back in 2013, we listed over $100 million worth of projects, and it's still the date that's still in plan because we knew when that dip is going to occur. Now, you do have your pros and cons people who like that, don't like that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the fact is, we have projects planned out for the future. And when we issued that years ago, we structure where there's a dip because every 10 to 15 years, there's going to be a need to replace infrastructure. That's a given. In a growing city, if you don't replace infrastructure, technically this goes away, dies. So 20 years ago, when we started issuing debt, we structure where it layers across, where it comes off, you'd be able to issue some debt and do some new projects and so on and so on. That was the strategy. Another part of the strategy is to minimize the debt side as well, but also keep it level because if you drop your tax rate, well, plain and simple, you don't have the debt capacity. But anyway, as an individual, I guess you can view it as debt as being bad. And as an individual, I kind of prescribe to the Dave Ramsey philosophy, and I like to be debt-free too from a personal household income. I work my budget that way. Guess what? I do have a budget. But anyway, from a city level, it's a different environment, different structure. Cities have old projects. Old infrastructure needs to be replaced. People want new improvements, new infrastructure. And in order to do this, the city has to use debt. And that's part of their financial tools in their pocket to accomplish that. Without that, it's going to be a long, long season. City has over $133 million of project waiting, as you well know, which I will address them in a minute, starting in 21 moving forward. Mainly residential utility street programs, as everybody knows. If you put the numbers to it, we have anywhere from $2 to $3 million in the general fund for street projects. Figure that out. How long it's going to take you to do a street? That's a street. Utility side, we increased about $100,000 this coming year, so we got $1.4 million to replace utilities. So, can we use cash? Absolutely. Is it responsible? Maybe not. There'd be a lot of mad people.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
When I talk to people, because I think I've been up here a lot of years to see this, and I guess I'm just really speaking to the camera. Most of us, a typical household, as we grow older, we reduce our amount of debt, and hopefully when we're retired, we have no debt. We live on a fixed income. Well, the city never grows old. It's perpetually a 30-year-old young family, and a 30-year-old family with, they have to borrow money to buy a house. They have to borrow money to buy a car, typically, right? We're always in that stage, aren't we? It's never going to end. So, and this city's fixing to be 200 years old in a few years. So when I tell people that way, it seems to help make sense. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
But
absolutely
you were
not.
talking about the philosophy of it.
Absolutely.
We're always in that young family mode, you know, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry,
No,
continue.
that's fine, Mayor. But by having a debt as your financial tool comes responsibility. You have to have some good debt management. Without that, yeah, cities can get in trouble. In 1995, 96, cities' bond rating was A. Over the past years, we brought it up to AA. And I can anticipate over the next 4 years, you know, it's possible you can do AAA. A lot of cities our size not that way. Big cities are. But I think past city manager council have been very prudent on debt management. At least they heard to my advice. When you can pull the trigger, issue debt, not issue debt. Have a good feel of the economy. Tax appraised value plays a lot into it. So debt management has to be on top of the list when you do debt. You just can't do it and let it go and I see bye-bye. No, it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of responsibility, especially on the IRS. I can go to jail. But anyway, but finally, bottom line, city manager, staff, we can develop all the lists you want, and I can come up with all kind of financial plans you want. But the ultimate decision is going to be council's, how they want to move forward and how you want to replace this infrastructure. That is your primary responsibility. So that's a big responsibility from now in the future for council. And I'm not saying do this, do that. I'm just here to tell you what can you do. Council is your decision as to how you want to move forward. Is that okay? So don't throw anything at me. Okay. Moving on, I'm going to talk about some assumptions because in debt capacity, it's a lot of worksheet. You got to make some assumptions. So I'll just give you some high level. Over the next 7 years, there's an anticipated growth of about 1.7. That's all combined average. You got ups and downs. You got to play out some assumptions. As you well know, last year we went down 4%. So I expect this coming year with the new improvements and all that, there's going to be an increase in appraisals. That's just my gut feeling. So with that said, also assume, this is a big assumption, is you keep your debt tax rate level. If that fluctuates, your debt capacity fluctuates. For this scenario I play out, I keep it level just to tell you what can happen. Council in the future wants to lower it, I can tell you what happens. But on this scenario, I created a flat level, and that's what we've been doing all these years. Bond interest, I assume a very, very conservative nut rate over a 20-year period. Actually, it's going to be a little less, but you know me, I'm shoot high so we get a little more cushion. And of course, over the next, from 2021 to 2024, you're going to have some abatements coming on road, about $109 million. I listed there some of them, but the biggest one, of course, is the Caterpillar. $104 million is in 2024. That's your big bang. Okay, any questions?
That's money that's going to come into us.
Now, let me qualify that statement.
Clarify that.
Let me qualify.
We didn't pay
That's
them
the
$104
appraised
million.
value,
Yeah.
not money, appraised value. That value is the current row. Not being taxed, but they do appraise them. So you still have some years out there. All right, let's get with it. This is a slide of your general obligation bonds, principal outstanding balance. These amounts are paid with your property taxes. It does not include TxDOT bonds overpass because those are paid with the reimbursement. Now, I'll talk about that later. But as you can see, over the next 4 years, our amortization is dropping like a hot potato, which is good. It was planned. So you're going to have about a 45% drop. This is nice just to see as a visual, but what I like to use is, of course, is your annual debt service. That tells you what you have. As you can see, from 19 to 23, you're going to have a pretty flat debt service, $9.4 million. In other words, taxes being collected to service $9.4 million over those fiscal years. But within those fiscal years, you're going to have some abatements coming on board, and plus with the assumption of the 1.9% appraisal over these years, keeping the tax rate flat, straight, level, there's a possibility we can generate $9.5 million. I'm not planning to talk in details on 9.5 because, as you well know, in a few weeks or next month, I think it's next month, we're going to talk about the CIP. And that's where we're going to talk about how those money will be addressed in those CIP and which projects are those. A little further down in 2024, $42.5 million. Your debt service dropped about $3 million. You got Caterpillar coming on with it's not going to be 104, but it's probably higher than $104 million. But you put that on there, you have $42.5 million debt capacity. And next couple of years, there's no abatement, but if you keep the assumption in play with a 9.9% increase, you could generate $4 million over 2 years, 2 and 2. The other big drop is in 27, close to $2 million. That's another $25 million. I shall tell you, the fiscal year 2024 and 2027, that's a given. You're going to have that. The other ones are going to be up and down, depends on your appraisals and everything else. But overall, that's a total of $81 million. In 2020, if things play out right, that's a $2 million. Next year's 2, 3, and again, I don't qualify. That's up to council. I'm just saying this is what your capacity is. And of course, in 2024, it's 42.5. Yes, sir.
And I would add for those whoever's left up here in this next few years, I know now Donald's salivating over the ability to get so many huge capital projects done that need to be done, but we have squeezed blood out of a turnip on the M&O side. Y'all remember, maybe I'll drop all y'all an email around that time, but the maintenance, M&O side of the tax rate and, how many police officers do we need, things like that. So y'all might actually consider shifting that formula a little. Think about that. I mean, it's been, you know what I'm talking about, Jeff, right? Y'all got that. We have daily needs in other departments as opposed to this. So with all this capacity, what you do with that debt side of that tax rate, because this is just general fund, right?
Man, you steal my thunder, man.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Were you getting to that?
And you're correct, this is general fund.
This is
You're
just the
absolutely
general
right.
fund, so.
And I didn't want to get
Okay,
into
I'm sorry,
very, very deep. No, maybe that's fine. One of there's a lot of options that we need to discuss.
Yes.
And have serious conversation in the coming months, because there's some options to consider.
Yep.
How do you want to play this out?
It's a wonderful opportunity.
Because
it really is.
I want to have 3 to 4 options, and City of Victoria is blessed right now because there has such a great flexibility right now. You can do a lot of things. But very simple, what Mayor was talking about is that you shift some pennies over or something from the debt to the M&O side where you create more revenues for the M&O to do more street on a recurring basis. Keep in mind, all this is not recurring. This is a one-time shot. So you also want to keep track, how can we leverage our reduction, savings, whatever you want to call our tax rate, where in the future we want to expand the street maintenance program, where we want to add different things to it and expand that project on a recurring basis. So all those discussions still have to take place in the coming months. But you're right, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't tell me that often, do you?
What's that?
That I'm right.
Well, you're leaving, so it's
Thank you,
okay.
Gilbert.
Only when he has the chance.
I don't think you've heard that.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Only does
You're
that.
leaving, so.
That's true, that's true, yeah, I got you, all right.
Okay, where were we? Okay. And of course, 25, 26, $2.2 million each. And again, that $25 million in 2027. That's the GO revenue side. On the GO and CO side, on the utility side, where I call them revenue bonds, the same thing is happening there. But a little earlier, you understand? Because it falls that way in reality, because when you do projects, you want to do utilities first. So you do your debt on that side, and later on you do your bond. Guess what? You got this coming over like this. So that's what happens. And so the other one will happen later. These will happen faster, because you don't want to do a street and then come back and do utilities. It has been done in the past. But as you can see here, again, over 4 years, you're going to have 46% of your principal is dropping. Again, what I like to use is your debt service. So you can tell from 19 and 20, we're going to have pretty flat debt service annual payment of $9.2 million. But as you can tell, 21, 22, 23, 24, and further down, I just stopped in those 3. That's $65 million. In 21, you got 14, 22, 11, 23, 16, and 24, 23 million dollars. How do you know that, Gil? Well, when we issue debt, we always set it to the base. It's not a variable rate, it's always to the base. So in other words, you sell X number of dollars, you need X number of dollars to the base added. We always done that philosophy because, well, for one thing, it's a good financial tool and it's great rating return on that because you know where you're at, you're secure, you can always generate that money to pay your debt. Last thing you want is roll the dice. Hopefully it's a hot season so I can collect more money. That's not the way it works. So we do it to the base. So I know how much will come off the base in each of those years. So it's a decision, again, council got to make. Does it go reinvest this or does it goes back? So that's a decision that still has to be made. Now, in closing, getting with the engineer department, street department, Donald and Ken, we came up with a plan, which we always had. We had to massage it because every year it changes. After looking at the design timeline and the construction timeline, because you got to do design and come in, do the construction, and then come in, do streets after utilities. It plays out, like I said here, you got revenue bonds as a given, $65 million. If it works out based on a timeline right now today, in 21, you're looking at $10.7 million issuing revenue bonds. 22, 14.3, and 23, 11.2, and so on, so on. As you can tell, towards the end of the latter years, you're not using all your debt capacity. On the street side, as I mentioned, ignore the front end, from 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, you got $71.5 million. In addition, what we like to do, or at least I like to leverage as much cash. It might be more than that, but right now this is where I'm comfortable at, to leverage cash and not use everything on the bond side. Does that make sense to y'all? Because in the past, I bet you it looks good on TV while I'm drinking water, but I'm taking some drugs. I am really dried out. But in the past, we like to, when we issued bonds, we can't help, we don't like to do 100% bonds. 60-40. We've done 50-50 sometimes, but that kind of leverage, that kind of percentages be good. It leaves you some flexibility. So with that said, on the local funds, you can tell in 2024, there's a 7.9. Well, $2 million is general fund, because I assume over the next 4 years, general fund can throw $2 million, where $1 million will come from its recurring one, maybe from one-time money. So that. The $5.9 million is, remember that text out overpass? By that time, those bonds, or before that, it's going to be paid off in 2021, 22. But I'll still be receiving some payments. I'll be accumulating some funds. And I project $5.9 million. It's going to be a little more than that, but that's where I am at right now. So I'm throwing text out money through. I'm taking some general fund money. So I got about $80-some million right there to work with. Again, we did the same thing with the street side, on the timing, on the design, and construction. If you can tell, in 24 is when we start issuing bonds, whatever council wants. 24.6, 17.7, 14, 9, 8, and so on. Of course, you won't have a balance left because you're not using all your bond capacity. What I presented there is a current scenario that we've been working on all these years. Here's a list of projects. For example, we're going to come in 2021. The project's names. These are strictly utilities and some design. Design, strictly design. You want to get in there as soon as possible, design everything you want, and slowly start tackling. So in 21, you're looking at 10.7. If you go back to the previous slide, well, guess what? There's in 2021, I got 10.7. So it ties to each other. So I don't plan to go through each slide, but that's a reference back to that table. Currently, this is what the staff is planning. These are the projects. Ken has a more detail as a time frame if you want to see date and time on it, but I'm not going to use that engineering. That's too big. But anyway, you keep going. In 2022, you got another revenue bonds, which of course corresponds back to that table I had. In 23, you start construction. 11.1, you keep going forward. You got the revenue bonds again. In 2024, guess what? You start issuing some GEO bonds or CO bonds and local funds to start doing the streets. Because you go in there, do the utilities, come back later, do your streets. And so on, and so on, and so on. So all that ties back to that table. Does that make sense, gentlemen, ladies? Ladies, gentlemen? That's the quick presentation I ever had in debt capacity.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd ask you to do that, especially with election season going on, and out there, people talking about that city council doesn't care about roads, that we don't care about fixing things. I just want to make sure that we are communicating with everybody that we can, that a plan has been set out there and it's been in motion for years. Debt is a function of it. And to accomplish all the improvements, there's going to have to be some debt being issued. And so I just wanted to put it in front of everybody again, make sure everybody understood it.
Yeah.
This doesn't include other projects we've looked at in the past, such as ASR and OCR, storage things that we need to keep in the back of our mind,
Yes, sir.
pay programs for employees and so on. It's just all this stuff. This is only the streets.
I appreciate you bringing it up, too. I'm amazed that people think that we don't really plan or don't have an idea where we're going. And we do. We're flexible with it, but we certainly plan.
And boy, if we had the money, we would be ripping up streets and repairing them and utilities as fast as we could, but it's just a function of how much money we have and want to keep a good financial bond rating.
I did left
I
one thing
applaud
out.
your efforts on that and keeping us AA rated and working hard at it. I know y'all do.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
Another thing is that we do have reserves, but I want to make sure everybody understand, y'all know this, for public purposes, you take your general fund, take your water fund, environmental fund, which is the main big ones. You got about $30 million combined. You don't want to spend that money on things like this right now. Look what happened to Harvey. So that was a $10 million hit. So, those are why, the reserves is very important. I like to see them higher, but of course, it's a politic thing. But anyway, I have no other comments, but if that's okay, I'm going to sit down now.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
We're still in items from council if there's anything else before we move on. Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing, we'll move into public hearing. Citizens communication. Anyone would like to come say anything at all? Now would be the time. Just, hello, sir, again. Come on up to the podium and keep it under 5 minutes. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. My
Thank you.
name is Michael Vondro. I live at East North Mobile Home Park. We have a serious problem with potholes. I mean, they're like 2 foot deep, and ambulances come, every week, and law enforcement vehicles come, and no one's making any effort to repair them. I understand it's a private thing and not a city issue, but on the other hand, if an ambulance, wrecked or something, or the postal truck flipped, I mean, these are big holes, and no one has anything, they have no incentive to do it. They need like some pressure, like from code enforcement or, some pillars of society to fix it, because they ain't gonna listen to a little man like me. They get careless.
Michael, you've been doing a great job.
I'm talking about, I know you guys will, but, the trailer park owner needs to write a check and get that fixed, because he's raised the rent and he can use the rent money to fix it. And they also have a sign that's swaying on a chain, and it could fall and hit someone on the sidewalk, and no one's made any effort to take care of it. But I do want to thank Animal Control. They came on the property and captured 10 dogs. They have a problem that they believe all dogs should be loose, and they don't listen to anyone. And I want to thank the police officer that wrote the $252 ticket to that Rottweiler owner, because he don't want him to get loose anymore, because he don't want another $252 ticket, And I just wish, they could also trim the branches. It's on the sidewalk, and you hit it as you're walking. I have trimmed some myself, even though I wasn't required to, but I'm scared the postal truck is going to flip over, because these are like big craters, like this, and, you know, a lot of people have been complaining, and the trailer park owner, he's not broke. He's a successful personal injury, you know, lawyer. He could easily write a check and get the city of Victoria to fix it. And building and inspections, they're in charge of fixing that sign. It's dangling, and I'm scared it's going to fall, and no one's took the incentive, you know, to fix it. And I understand it's private and everything, but, you know, if someone gets hurt, you know, I would like to see the owner of the trailer park and the manager responsible for that, because they're taking zero action. And that's about it. Thanks for listening and all the help in ordering new animal traps, because 10 dogs were trapped, and one person, his dogs were trapped 6 times. And the reason they released the dogs to animal control because they didn't want to pay the $252 tickets in municipal court. And I hope that the animal control and the police officers can continue to write $252 tickets to force them to take care of the problem against their wishes. And I would like to see the $85 fine to animal control submits to change to $170, and the $252 ticket to $504. 4 people have already died from dog bites in Texas. I don't know if you're aware of that, but, you know, not in Victoria, but 4 have. And I think the laws are fine the way they are. All they need to do is just start writing tickets, and that'd be a good way for the city to make some money in the county. Just start writing tickets every time they see a loose dog, because you can make a lot of money at East North Mobile Home Park. You could probably make $1,000 a day.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, citizens' communication is still open. If anyone else would like to say anything. Okay, seeing none, and we'll close citizens' communication and move into the rest of our agenda. We have one ordinance.
Item C1 is an amended ordinance calling for a joint general election between the City of Victoria and Victoria Independent School District on Saturday, May 4th, 2019, for mayor, for council members for District 5 and 6, and establish procedures for holding the election, designating the precincts and polling places for the election, appointing certain officers to conduct the election, providing for the sharing of expenses, providing for savings, declaring an emergency, and providing an effective date. Mayor and council, this is an emergency reading, so it will need 5 affirmative votes.
So we'll open the public hearing on C1. If anyone would like to speak just to this item. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close that public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Are there any questions? I just want to point out real quick, I think I said we have one ordinance. We actually do have others on the consent agenda. That's a little bit of a change, so.
Just a question, why is it considered an emergency order or ordinance?
The Secretary of State's office has always recommended that we do this on a single reading rather than having multiple readings. Quite frankly, I'm not sure why they recommend that, but they do.
Okay.
And, you know, I think it's worth noting, this is an amended ordinance because the elections administrator changed. And we had to, and that's why we're back doing an amended ordinance too.
That's what we just changed to administrator instead of putting the name
Yes,
in there.
ma'am. Yeah, we had the previous, we have to declare who's going to be the election, I guess, administrator, and that's Miss Hill, so.
Ms. Hill has been there for a very long time, and I've always found her to be very capable, so I was very excited to see her name on here finally.
I didn't realize that. That's good. Good. Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. All right. Thank you. And C2.
C2 is an ordinance readopting Chapter 8 of the Victoria City Code related to finance and taxation, providing for publication, enforcement, codification, and savings, and declaring an effective date. And Mayor, before we get a motion on this or a public hearing, I'd like to point out that I made a slight mistake in Section 8-5, referring to the Victoria Central Appraisal District as the County Appraisal District by mistake. And so if you can consider that as a substituted version, so we don't have to do a formal motion to make that change. And thank you to Councilman Halapaska for pointing out that mistake.
I have to laugh. That was a big deal when they changed it. They got tired of the ribbon that you remember when the county changed. Anyway, let's open the public hearing on C2. If anyone would like to speak to this item only. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Council? Take a motion.
I move we adopt item C2 with the substituted version.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone understood what he's talking about with the it says Victoria County Appraisal District. It's not really a county entity, so.
We changed their name a few years back.
I wanted to leave it. I thought it was kind of funny, but, because they caught all the guff over it, but I get it totally. Okay.
I have a question about section 8-6. And is it updated? Does that include cell phones, tablets, anything related to telecommunication services, or am I just off the mark on what that is?
The tax under that section, I believe, is just the telecommunication services that are regulated by the Utility Commission, the Texas Utility Commission, which I do not believe includes cell phones, but honestly, I'm not sure. I could research that for you if you'd like.
8.6? 8.6?
Yes.
8.6.
Okay. Because it doesn't
Old
say.
8.8.
Yeah, it used to be 8.8 and now it's 8.6.
I would think it would be, because if you look at your phone bill on your cell phone, it gives you the detail of each cell phone that you have, and it has the taxes, city, state, and, so I've seen that on my phone bill.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about rendition.
Why don't
We're
I
not.
confirm that for you before second and third reading?
Okay.
Okay.
And I had a question on 8.7 now, it used to be 8.9. On the homestead freeze for persons who are disabled or 65 and over. If somebody, like, for instance, during the hurricane, they had to go and do the roof, and the value of their house technically is supposed to stay the same, but they had to put a new roof. How are these people, are they still going to be exempt? They
Yes.
are?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, that status shouldn't be changed at all by.
that's correct.
By the fact, because you have to keep up, you have to keep up your roofs and things like that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Goosh, would you explain 8.4 to me? I read it 5 times. Man, there's some good lawyer talk in there. It's the homestead tax exemption for persons 65 and older granted. And I lose what it's trying to say.
Right. This is separate from the freezing of tax rate. There's 2 separate things that happen within our tax code whenever a citizen reaches the age of 65. First, their homestead value, they get an exemption of $10,000 under this. It was 3, it's been changed to 10. And so that homestead tax exemption that you get on your tax credit every year is $10,000 whenever the person reaches the age of 65. That is separate and apart from the freeze that happens that prevents those taxes from going up later in the future.
Okay.
Okay, my question, the same as his, but it's talking about, you have to go and file by January the 1st, the year that you're turning 65, or the year after? Because it looks like it says, who have attained the age of 65 years or older on or before the first day of January the 1st of such year.
Right. So the year on which you are 65 years of age on January 1st. So if your birthday is in July, the following year after you turn 65, you would need to go down and do that.
Okay, because since it says shall be exempt from payment on such year, but you're talking about after they turn 65.
That's right.
That it's not very clear when it says of such year.
We'll keep reading. It says, be exempt from payment of ad valorem taxes, except that as to those which had heretofore been pledged for the payment of any debt. That's what threw me.
Yes. That makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does.
Seems very Old Testament, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's the gray hair. It's the gray hair. You've got a share of it too. But
Funny.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
I was going to ask Mr. Halapasco. I know what he had to do. Aren't you over 65, sir? Do you remember having to go down there? Okay. I'm sorry, Tom. I had to say that. I don't have too many of these opportunities to pick on you left, so.
Relying on
Nana.
friends and relying on just experience, I was under the impression that you filed when you turned 65. That was not one that was dependent on being January 1st. homestead is living in the property and owning it on January 1st. But over 65 is whenever that is, that's when the freeze goes into effect, because if it's the middle of the year, it may be the rate of that year as opposed to the rate set at the end of the year. Is that
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is that correct, or are we
Yeah.
changing something?
Now you've got, that part is not changing, okay? This section, the only thing that is changing in this section is the 3 to 10. So that has not changed. And I apologize if I misstated the way that works. I may need to reconfirm that and get myself straightened out, because now I've got two different things going on, and I'm not sure I am following
Because
the conversation.
the homestead, the
okay.
10,000 deduction is available to anyone who owns a home and it is their homestead.
Right.
That's not dependent on age 65.
Right.
The freeze in the rate, and perhaps the value, I've never been clear on that, is
It's the value.
the value
The value's for us.
when you turn 65.
Right.
Thomas, did you seek outside legal assistance with this chapter when you were redoing it? Was this one that you had somebody else help
No, you're
look
thinking
at?
of the utility code.
Okay, that's the one, not this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just call Halliburton, John Halliburton. Who is our board member? Okay. The one with the most questions.
Yes.
You represent us on the board over there, so, yeah.
I will have a more English language explanation of that section on second and third reading.
Okay. Any further questions on the cleaned up ordinance? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. All right, thank you. So now our consent agenda.
All right. Section D, the consent agenda will be approved by a single vote tonight. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. They are first, the approval of minutes of the regular meeting of March 19th, 2019. Second, a resolution awarding the 2018-19 HVAC units at the library and 700 main replacement project to EMS Heating and Air Conditioning Incorporated in the amount of $41,900. Authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date. Third is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2018-2019 City of Victoria Water Wastewater Fund budget to provide funding for the purchase and installation of a standby generator for the surface water treatment plant in the amount of $595,619, providing for savings and declaring an effective date. Fourth is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Texas Office of the Attorney General's Criminal Justice Division's Rifle Resistant Grant Program in the amount of $27,822.46 with no matching funds required from the city to be used for the purchase of body armor for the Victoria Police Department and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Ayes have it. E1.
Item E1 is a resolution ratifying expenditures and approving payment to Profield Services Incorporated in the amount of $57,789.75 for trucking sanitary sewer waste associated with the Airline Road Emergency Sanitary Sewer Line Replacement and declaring an effective date.
I move to adopt E1.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. That's expensive service, ain't it? We'd had an awful lot of very unhappy people if we didn't do it, so.
It would have been worse if we'd had overflows and had to
Yes.
pay fines to TCQ for those overflows.
True, yeah. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, ayes have it. E2.
E2 is a resolution approving an expenditure for the repair of a water pump at the city's pump station on the Guadalupe River from Northside Electric Motors in the amount of $36,250, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the repair and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Motion and
She can show me
second.
a Coke.
I'm glad you used local folks. I don't recall if that's common or not, but I'm glad you did that, so. Okay. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Ayes have it. E3.
Item E3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to
Execute a professional services agreement with Doucette and Associates for engineering services related to the erosion repairs on the Guadalupe River resulting from Hurricane Harvey in the amount of $135,461 and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to adopt E3.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same. Okay, thank you.
E4 is a resolution rejecting all bids for the Crestwood Drive Reconstruction Project Phase 1, Ben Jordan Street to Lawrence Street, and declaring an effective date.
Sadly, I move to adopt. but not sadly.
Second.
Understood, understood. Everybody understand what we're doing here?
Could you
This is important.
explain
No, I
it
think probably
for our
needs
listeners?
some explanation.
Okay.
Sure. So recently we opened bids for this project, and the day before we opened those bids, we realized that there was a mistake in one of the bid line items, and it was too late to send out an addendum. So when we opened the awards, or opened the bids, at the time, the apparent low bidder was Brandon Paving. And then when we applied the correct quantities to that bid item, it swapped who was the low bidder and gave that bid to, or made Lester Contracting the low bidder. So rather than have a problem with that, we decided that it would be fair to everybody, try to be fair to everybody, and just reject all bids, correct the quantity, and go back out for bid.
So the quantity was supplied to us by our engineering firm,
It was. Yeah,
but
yes, sir.
and then we didn't catch it.
We did not catch it, no, sir.
Timeline?
We plan to go back out, advertise tomorrow, if possible. And then the following Wednesday, we'll advertise a second time. And then the Wednesday after that, we'll open. And so it'll probably slow us down about a month at the most,
3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
Do you foresee more bidders?
We're going to try to market it a little bit harder, but there's no guarantee. You know, there's a lot of work going on right now, so some of the larger contractors out of the Houston area, they're not going to be as hungry. So hopefully we can get some more in, and we'll just have to see what we get.
Where do you advertise?
Typically, well, of course, we advertise in the Advocate, but we also advertise on a bid system. Electronic bid system, like a Plans House. And so when that goes out, it'll go to anybody who kind of has that code, looks for that type of job.
Which one do you use?
Texas BidNet. Is it Texas BidNet or Texas BidNet?
Do they send it to ABC here in town?
I'm not sure. If ABCs have signed up, then it will.
They use VXM or something like that, but that, I mean, I see all the state-let contracts on there for road construction, all the other cities come through that.
What's it called? What's the second one?
I'd have to call ABC to get the exact one, but it's like VCM or
And those are
VXM.
fee-based? You pay a fee and you become a member, and is that how that works?
You can just submit the projects to them. The members pay the fees to join the organization.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah, the city
And then
does not
we-
pay the fee.
yeah.
Whoever gets the plans will pay the fee.
Yep,
Y'all should discuss that.
yes.
If it doesn't create too much more work, yeah, the more bids, the better.
Might not catch this one, but maybe we can catch some other one.
I don't recall this ever happening. It's been a lot of years, I don't recall this happening.
Yeah.
But I think, I do agree, we need to keep it fair. These two guys put their bids together, and hopefully they have a lot of their work already. They'll just tweak it and be able to resubmit pretty quick.
Right, right.
yeah.
That's our thought, is it can be turned around pretty quick.
And based on the new timeline, when do you think that residents would notice that something's happening out there? I realize that there's submittal process, the contract process, submittal process.
I would probably say midsummer. Would be-
There's a Miss Clazel that lives over there, and if you don't get this road started, she's gonna be at my house. So we have to get this started. I promised her it would be this year, so.
Would you like
she's
me
a
to give her
wonderful
Ken's
person.
address? I'll give her Ken's address.
Yeah, I'll give her, no, that's okay. She's wonderful, and she's asked me about it, and she's very excited that this is gonna happen. And
Well, we're gonna try to push it through as fast as we can.
Okay.
And in my opinion, I would think that we should give it to Lester, because right now we still have problems with Woodway, and I don't see why we should wait and give another contract to Brenham if we still have that problem. And that's my personal opinion. Why wait another couple of months to start the job when we've promised the people for so long?
Which,
Well, and I don't think, the Woodway issue, I don't think we can blame it on Brannon. That was the soil conditions out there. So I don't think we can blame it on his company for how that road was done. And I'm not sure,
Yeah, we take
That was
samples
a
now.
base failure that we
Yeah,
didn't
I don't
test
think you
for
can
and
blame it on the,
learned a huge lesson from
the
it.
street.
Expensive
Contractor on
lesson,
that.
and then the rain that came right after it.
Well, the fact that we found out the day before you opened the bids, that would have made Lester still be the lower bid.
Well, it was too late to send down an addendum so that everybody would know.
But still, yeah, I don't know that it's gonna change any. Especially, like you said, we don't have a possibility of another bidder coming in.
Well, and we're bringing this back with our recommendation to reject the bids. Council can choose not to. That's y'all's choice on whether you want to reject or not. That's our recommendation, is that we do.
I understand that.
Recommend. So it's your choice.
But, I'm just saying that, I don't know that it's really gonna change, and we're gonna take more time. That's my personal
And
feeling.
yeah,
that's all.
that
No.
may be a true statement, certainly, but I know for fairness, we asked them to bid on something that wasn't right, and I just worry about the fairness of it.
I don't know what's gonna change, though, because all you're doing is reducing the amount of one item. Everything else is gonna be the same. I mean, why would you come in and rebid a project at a lower price when you know these people did their work, because I've worked in construction. You do a lot of work to put a bid together.
Absolutely.
They're not gonna come down on their price if they're not gonna make any money. Okay? So I don't see why they would come back and change their bid. I mean, the difference between the two bids, the way they're shown, is $93,000. They're not gonna come back and change their bid for that much. That's me. I mean, you look at it whichever way you want.
Are we required to rebid if we were, you can't do anything where you just ask these two to? Of course, they know where, yes, sir. Mr. Hopkins.
This may be more of a legal question. This happened once before. We had bid out signs for the wayfaring signs for the Main Street project, saying, this way to the courthouse, for tourism. And there was an error in the bid process, and they made them stop right there and start all back over. And I think it might be a legal question that I'm trying to ask here. At what point do you have to start back over when you've made an error? I'm not sure. It is up to us is the question, and perhaps if legal was given some time, they could answer that better.
Well,
Donald did ask me that question along the way. And there's not a hard and fast rule in the law about when you must stop the process and start over when something like this happens. But looking at the equities involved, the bids that were put in good faith. And it would substantially change the outcome. In fact, it would be a 180-degree reversal of the outcome if we were to make a change. Essentially, at this point, the city is in an unfortunate position where we're choosing the outcome based on whether or not we choose to amend the bid that was put out there. And that's not fair to either bidder, for us to call King's X at the last minute and then simply choose which one we like best. The result that is the most equitable to everyone involved, unfortunately, is to reject the bids and start over again.
I guess the way I see it, this was a pretty significant difference in the amount of raw materials that would be needed. And so there may have been an economy of scale in the bid. So I don't feel that it's fair for us to just say, well, we've done the math and we can tell what your unit price is, so we're going to back into what your new bid is, because they may have done that bid based on expecting a larger quantity than what they did. That's the way I see it, and why I think rejecting it makes the most sense, or is the most fair.
I'm just kind of torn on this because their bid submitted unit prices, right? And I try and put myself in the shoes of both these contractors. And I'm kind of falling on the side of let's rebid it, only because as soon as we issued the contract for this amount, we're going to do a deductive change order, and then the other one becomes lower. Say, well, if you applied that at the beginning, then it should have been me. So you're just putting a rock in a hard place.
Yeah. You gotta go the safe route.
And just go, okay, let's just have a clean bid and not worry about going back and forth and which way we choose to execute the contract with the price we have here, or apply the changing quantities beforehand or after. Just go with a clean bid. Everybody knows they're on the same game.
And unfortunately, it delays it, but we're looking at roughly 600 calendar days
Yep. And they don't know the numbers.
for the project.
They don't know what everybody's rate is for that quantity, correct?
Well, it's
They do
public
not know
now.
the unit prices.
They don't know unit prices. And you don't know what the flip would be. We don't know what the flip is be. We're not talking about here. We just know it will flip.
You're gonna have to explain flip. You mean just the bid?
That it would, if we change the quantities, that the order would flip.
Okay.
We don't
In
know
the
the
bid, yeah.
magnitude of that change, right? So everything's still protected as far as everybody being on a fair and equal basis. I'd rather see this project move forward. I think we're already a little behind, so, but at the same time, I want it to be just open and transparent with the contractors, and I don't want them to feel like one got the shaft.
Okay.
So I guess I talked myself into being in favor of this rejection.
Well, and we can all call Thomas's office and say, hurry up and get this out, and lean on him and lean on Donald. Let's, y'all make this priority, okay?
We have already
All right.
talked, Donald and I, about how we can compress the schedule in order to get you a contract back as quickly as possible.
Okay, that would
One
be-
item that I'd spoken to Mr. Reese about was contractual negotiations. Usually typically last 60 days, but I don't see that on our projects. You're in a text dot program and contracts are done in 30 days.
Let me clarify that just a little bit. It can go between 30 and 60 days. People that we've done business with quite a bit is closer to the 30.
Okay.
Ones that may be unfamiliar with the way we work, especially ones that aren't used to working with governmental entities, tend to go towards the 60. In this case, with these two, it'd probably be closer to the 30.
Yeah.
With either one of them.
And I'd like us to look at, I'm sorry,
No, it's
Mr.
okay,
Lisa.
go ahead.
I'd like us to look at standard language in other contracts that specify how quick that contractual or negotiation takes place. Sure.
Well, you have to remember too, though, and Thomas needs to explain how much time it takes his office to look at those contracts and get them back. Because there is, his office does go through those.
Right, I'm saying, we issue the contract to the general contractor, whose legal counsel reviews it and makes whatever tweaks, changes they want, and they come back to us and we say yes or no.
That's
And
right. But as Shermel is saying, those contracts do come through my office. Our office, quite frankly, turns them around pretty
Yeah.
quick. The parts of that process that are going to cause delay, I hate to use that phrase, going out and getting surety bonds and all of those steps that the contractor has to do
I
sometimes
don't buy
take a
into that
while.
on the bonds.
Okay.
They have to submit their bond pricing when they submit on the bid.
Mm-hmm.
They're already in contact with bonding agents for all their jobs. They have their financials in with their bonding agent. Anytime I've gotten a bond, 5-10 days.
Yeah.
To say that it's stretched out, that's not a true statement. They can go get their bonds and get them executed.
Sure. Okay, I understand. My point, I guess, was to say that the time that it spends within the legal department offices is not very large because the contract itself has already been drafted by the time things go out for bid. And so generally what we're doing is reviewing our own language and perhaps a few minor tweaks along the way. It's usually not terribly long. But I do take what you're saying. It would perhaps be a good project for us to look at that timeline and see if there are areas where we could tighten it up.
Yeah,
Do you
that's what
want
I'm asking for.
to put it under items from council or something for a future date? I mean, if y'all need to, work it out or whatever, but, bring it back in July, something like that, so. Well, I'm serious, give them time,
I would like to, yeah, let's visit a little bit about it
Sure,
offline
Oh,
and
we are
tell you what
laughing.
I see.
sure, absolutely.
Okay, my question was, I see an alternate bid for hot mix. That's not going to be what we're gonna be using. We're gonna be using the concrete, right?
That's correct. I asked for that alternate bid item just so that we could, so that I could show council how close we were, between the concrete and the hot mix. And it actually turned out to be a lot closer than I thought it was gonna be.
And that's our
when-
normal process. We
Okay,
ask
all
for that
day.
so you can see the
Yeah.
cost comparison. Because historically, councils ask us, well, what's the difference? What would it have cost if we'd done this or that? So that's just our adopted standard.
And the calendar days that they're using on there is for concrete.
That's correct. Well, I think it's for either way, right? Ken, that was for either? It's for either,
Either way? Okay.
either way. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Only other thing I want to point out, sorry to drag it on.
No, no.
And this is more for audience listening. We're talking about a section of Crestwood between Laurent and Ben Jordan, right? Total rebuild, utilities, curb gutter, concrete, 3 lanes, approximately $5 million. One stretch of roadway. So it's expensive.
It is. And you better mind your P's and Q's, Donald, because it's right in front of his office. So every day, there's gonna be a phone call. They're not, you know, but you keep an eye on them for us over there,
All
that
right.
contract.
Price of living's high and going up.
Yeah, but you're right.
We can hire Jeff as an inspector.
I don't think you have to hire him. He's gonna do it. Now, you know,
Payroll.
not to get too distracted, but the Red River from, in the park there, was 1.7 or $8 million.
About right.
That's Red River and asphalt with no curb and gutter.
Yeah.
It's a long stretch, but yeah, it's crazy. Okay, good discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Okay, city manager reports.
OC is going to talk about the city flag that Dr. Young asked about and what he uncovered, well, what April uncovered.
Yes, I want to thank April for digging into the archive. She actually did this before I really had a chance to start with the project. But basically, per Dr. Young's request, did find out that a city flag was adopted in August of 1972. Very standard flag dimensions, rectangular flag, if I remember correctly. April, rectangular shaped flag, and it's basically the city seal against a white background. Yeah. There we go. A little bit more visible on the presentation than it is in the handout, but basically the flag as described by the ordinance was a city seal against white background with a fringe around it, and typically fringes are gold, but you also, it's not recommended for outside flags to fly with fringes because they will tear themselves up and they also destroy the flag in the process. And again, that was adopted in 1972. There we go. Kim Martin in Parks is our flag expert. There's a list of summaries on the flags that the city uses. Typically, most people that are interested in flags fly a 3x5 flag. That's typically the size of flagpole that most residents put in their yard. Here in Victoria, we do change them twice a year. We have very tough sun, heat, and weather and wind conditions. Typically the ones the city flies are changed twice a year. And basically, I just got some prices. There are minimum orders of 6 flags. The 3x5 flag, which is what's typically recommended for Victoria, I mean, for residents, the flag that's flown for the weather rating that we have in Victoria, it's a Polymax material. It's double-sided. You really can't see through it. And given the fact that it's just the seal on both sides, it lends itself to double-sided formation. It's reinforced with vertical stitching, and basically they end up for an order of 6 costing about $100 to $120. And again, these are outside flags rated for the Victoria area for wind and sun exposure.
Okay.
How do they apply the city seal?
It's done with a digital process now. Yes, sir. Digital transfer like they do. And Polymax is not like, it's almost as heavy as a canvas, but apparently it's a heavy-duty rough nylon.
So they just dye it?
No, it's printed on there.
Printed?
It's printed on there. I asked the same thing because I assumed it would be
Nobody
somehow
didn't want an iron
transferred.
on.
Yeah, transferred on canvas, but they've gone to a digital process even for flag designs.
Would we essentially be the authorized seller? Who would sell?
Well, I guess it depends on what council wants. Our thought was we're going to have a minimum of 6 to get 6 made, and including a setup fee puts a little over $100. And if council wishes, we can certainly have 6 made. We probably use either Parks or the CVB's cash account. My department doesn't really have one, but they certainly could be sold to the public at basically what the cost is.
What was your
We would
thoughts on?
ostensibly sell them for what?
I just got bids. I didn't get bids per se, but I did ask 2 flag companies for quotes. One I didn't get back from. So we got one quote basically for $110 to $120. We certainly would ask for three calls if this is something council wants to pursue. The ones we contacted were about $110 to $120.
You were asking something, Councilman?
Yes. What was your thoughts on use?
On a flagpole? I mean, something for community pride. I mean, that was brought up to me by a neighbor of mine who flies flags out there, and he had just asked about the city's flag if there was one, because he would proudly fly it on his historic home.
But we would sell them at cost?
There's one.
Well, cost including our setup fee. I mean, my understanding is I think that's what we're required to do. But you can, like right now, I checked with Kim, we have no vacant flags, like the Six Flags Monument. Everywhere that we fly flags, the poles were taken.
Sure.
You can fly a city flag below a Texas flag, but the flag has to be constructed to do that. It's got to have the grommets on the top side of the flag as well.
Well, we certainly have a really nice city seal. I think that seal is beautiful. You can put me down for one if you need to get an order together. I'll buy a flag. I don't,
Sure. Well, and I have no doubt that if we really publicize it, I'm sure we could find 6 people who wanted to fly one possibly.
I know 6 up here with me that might,
Well,
if y'all commit.
I would not be ever confused with a history buff, but I do think that our flag is really special, and the fact that we are according to our comprehensive plan, we're the only city in the state under which all 6 flags did fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's correct.
So
yes.
that's not just an arbitrary design on our city flag and city seal.
Right. And there might be a possibility, just to save money, if there's a little demand, we could certainly announce that we're going to create a flag. If we create more, the price per flag is going to drop a little bit, I'm sure.
So in 5 years, we're going to turn 200 years old. This may be part, y'all need to be thinking about that big party we're going to have. It's going to be a blowout. You might have a market for these flags. So
sure.
You might need to get ready, and we might have a thing where everybody fly their city flag on our 200th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
You might end up with a custom 200th anniversary flag. I don't know. People love that stuff.
Could.
I'll be right there with you, I hope. So,
Ms. Scott, on the design, it was designed by the same, Tom Jones was commissioned by Bank and Trust to design the city seal, and then he was also commissioned by Bank and Trust through the council to design the flag, and he just put the seal against the white background with fringe. So that's basically how.
How about we do it as a run-up announcement, as you're saying, to the 200th anniversary, and say this is going to be our yearly run of flags for Victoria on the run-up to the 200 years, and have an online ordering form or something to get your name on the list and commitment, or pay online, and then we'll, instead of us guessing up here that we need 30 that we're going to sell, we could go ahead and have it and say, okay, we're going to sell it, this month of every year, the next 5 years, get flags done or something like that, and really formalize it.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are outside flags. The fringe flags are typically for indoor displays, but these are, and these prices and these quotes and these designers basically for an outside flag built for Victoria, so they tend to be a little bit more expensive than the display flags.
yeah.
We could do
So
that.
you got something to think about, maybe
Sure.
expanding it, think on it, sleep
Bring
on it a
something
bit.
back
And
to
then,
council about that.
I want one, and this is a reminder, you can't use our seal unless you get permission from the legal office. So
That's
just
right.
a little reminder.
It's trademark.
So, I mean,
That's
in this
correct.
day and age of going out, and it might end up on it for our 200th anniversary. It might end up on T-shirts and everything. I don't know. So we'll
Okay.
see.
Sure.
I was in Walgreens about 5, 6 years ago, and there were flip-flops with this on them, that seal. And I bought them. I thought it was fascinating. And as I traveled around the state, Walgreens had done some sort of contract, and everywhere, every community they were in, they had hats and flip-flops with that local. I'm serious. It's funny,
logo.
but I never showed y'all that. I had to bring them up.
I'm
here.
not so sure they got permission. Maybe they
No,
asked
I'm pretty
Thomas,
sure
but-
they didn't. It might have been 10 years ago. I don't know. I'll have to find those and show y'all.
Probably at Pat McGee's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me get clarification if you don't mind.
Yeah,
So y'all, you do not want us to order anything at this time, or you do want us to go ahead and order an initial 6 flags and see if we can sell those, or
I think you could probably go more than 6.
okay.
So we'll try and do a pre-sale type announcement. And it could be as simple as putting the public word out, and certainly on Facebook and on the website and other places, and just have
Probably
them
do a run of
contact us.
25 or something.
I think let me talk to a few people. We'll get a little commitment together on a first batch.
Well,
Okay?
like OC said, we can do pre-sales on flags and
Yeah,
go ahead and
okay.
put that out, and that way you don't have to worry about commitment. We'll just do the pre-sale,
Well,
and we can work on that.
We need one to
So-
show people. So
We-
it's
we-
okay.
We also might really, I mean, you said that they could be flown below flags, but they have to be constructed.
Yes,
Because.
that's what I was told.
Because I'm perhaps being naive, but I'm not seeing a lot of people being willing to put up a new flagpole for a Victoria flag. But
Right.
if they had that option,
Yeah.
being able to fly it underneath.
And that's just it. I don't know. I have no clue how many people have a private flagpole. And two, the size is really determined by the size of the flagpole. Most, again, residential sizes tend to be 3 foot by 5 foot, which is what we went with.
I think we can make it really complicated, and we can do 2 pre-order styles. One that's going to have the flags that will be flown under a flag, and one that's going to be flown
We could
with
do
the
that.
3 by 5. And
Sure.
and we can try to do pre-orders. So
Yeah, could certainly do that.
All right, good stuff.
thank you,
Thank you.
OC.
Okay.
To be continued.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
April,
OC.
for your research on that. So
And thank
Okay.
you, Dr. Young, for bringing it up.
Yeah. Okay, we have one other item, an MOU, that we need to talk about real quick.
Thank my neighbor.
So the item that you have before you now is a MOU to formalize an agreement that we've had with the county since November of 2000. And basically, that agreement was originally put down in an informal letter between the Director of Utilities and the Commissioner of Precinct 2 at that time. And what it states is basically that the county will continue to maintain the roads around our off-channel reservoirs in return from being able to use some untreated water out of one of our OCRs or from a raw water pipeline to help with road maintenance and fighting fires. And that's the gist of it, pretty simple.
They don't have any trouble with it being in a floodway?
No, they obviously they can't access it when it's in a floodway, but they haven't had any trouble maintaining it afterwards. It's all gravel roads. Most of it's gravel roads, so they just regrade it and maybe add a little bit more material and move on.
Do they have a barn out there, or is this equipment just out in the open?
At this time, they do not have any equipment out there. In the past, they would just store equipment there just, for a couple of days if they had a project going on right there, so they didn't have to move it back across town. But they have not stored equipment there in several years. They just would like to have that option if it need be.
But they're not requiring or asking us to have a barn or anything?
No,
out there?
no. It's
Okay.
just if they stored it there, they would just be out in the open.
Okay.
this is just a report.
Right.
The commissioners are going to take it up. They're going to do a formal
Yeah,
action.
the
but,
commissioners asked that we formalize this instead of a letter. They wanted it an MOU, and that's why it's coming back before you.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I just wish that it didn't look like we have to trade services. Those people pay county taxes. Isn't that right? I mean, come on. And then certainly let them use the property, certainly let them get water. That's great. I personally would support that whether they did anything that road or not, because that's the way it ought to be. But the fact that it just looks like we have to trade something for them to work in the county. That road's in the county. You know, it's odd to me, but that's another discussion for another day. So I'm glad they're formalizing it and it's working out for both parties.
It's worked well it's been
Yeah.
a good relationship for numerous years, and we like that, so.
Yep.
It's beneficial
I don't want to
to us.
disrupt that. Thank you, Donald.
All right, thank y'all.
Okay, we do have executive session. Does this conclude all the rest of our regular business?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and we'll be right in here, or where did y'all want to go? Right here. Be quick, okay, we'll move in here.
Sure,
Thank
so
you.
the city council will recess into executive session on the second day of April 2019 at 6:22 PM. The subject matter of the deliberation is section 551.103, 551.087, to discuss or deliberate the offer of financial or other incentive to a business prospect that the city council seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the city of Victoria, and with which the city of Victoria is conducting economic development negotiations. And also section 551.074 with regard to personnel matters, including but not limited to discussion of the applications received for the position of city manager. Thank you.